right, we'll start off with
Tweed.
the Tweed piece, because you know everything I don't. So we're hot. Mics are hot. I'm turning them all up. All right, Harry. I'm ready. And we're on. This is the show on 103.5 FM, WNHH, NewHavenIndependent.org. I am the host of the show. My name is Michelle Turner. Sitting across from me is a person that I give a lot of credit to for kind of propping me up and really kind of opening my mind when it came to being a good journalist. He is known throughout the community as a reporter's reporter. He is John DeAndre. And John DeAndre has been in the business probably
1984.
Yeah, I was going to say probably
years.
A little bit. We got about a 4-year difference. Did you get your FCC license? When did you get your FCC license?
Oh, remember that?
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Oh, probably back in the 80s, early 80s.
I got mine in 78.
In college. Probably like 80, 81 at UNH.
Yep. I got mine in 78.
Yeah.
So it is a little bit of a...
Yeah.
But John is truly someone who is a native New Havener, and he used to be a City Hall beat reporter, and then he got into politics a little bit, chief of staff for Barbara Dina Cola in Hamden. Then he went up to the state capitol for a little while. But all of that, underneath all of that, he was a teacher. And so now he teaches social studies and civics in one of the area public schools. So thank you, John, for coming on today.
I'm happy to be here.
He's the person that I connect with when there are civic things going on or we have a robust discussion about civics.
I think we started together, and I'd have to look it up, but I think in the fall of 1989, you and I were teamed up in the afternoons.
Yes.
At
that place.
At that right. For 5 years.
Yeah, for 5 years.
I'm pretty sure it was late fall 1989. And we did it for 5
We did it for 5
years.
years. And then we had the nerve to go over to WQUN, and do it again.
For 20 years. On a part-time basis.
On a part-time basis. Well, for you, a part-time basis.
But it was, it kept us involved.
Yeah, it kept us involved, and
it legitimizes us.
Yeah, and we really got to spread our craft a little bit.
Mm-hmm. In a different way than we did at the other place.
Yeah.
The other place, it was a grind.
Yeah, it was a grind.
And we cut our teeth on a lot of big stories.
A lot of big stories.
New Haven-centric.
Yep.
Big time. Whether we fell into a lot of stuff, too, but that's a story for another day.
That's another day. So, today we're going to talk about a couple of subjects that are hot right now throughout town, and really and truly, the story of the Board of Education is probably topping everything, although we just got an alert on a breaking story about a New Haven cop shooting going to the Supreme Court, state Supreme Court, right?
Yeah.
So we may get into that a little later, depending on the time
and
that we have.
That was the one where the cops from Hamden came in to New Haven. That was crazy.
Yeah, the Hamden cop and a Yale cop.
Yeah.
And didn't alert New Haven police.
Right.
And shot some young man based on what was told to him by a third party. So,
if we were still in the newsroom on a full-time basis, we'd be shaking our heads like...
Yeah, because you know what?
In
a lot of ways, it sounds like Malik Jones.
Yes. Well, yes.
It sounds like Malik Jones in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And I don't know if anybody can ever forget that. I mean, I think the effect it had on the town.
Right. Of New Haven and East Haven.
Yeah.
I mean, do they even use that as a model of what not to do?
Well, I think in certain instances you may hear about it, but for the most part, I think people still haven't healed from it.
Correct.
So a lot of people just kind of like bury it. But I bring it up every now and then to make a point.
Well, I wonder in training if they use it as a model of this is a case study of what not to do.
What not to do.
I mean, it's a great case model.
And I thought, I really did believe at one point that it was pretty clear after Malik Jones, even though now that's 22 years ago.
Right.
That New Haven police were definitely to be notified if you were pursuing someone.
Right.
And the fact that New Haven police do not pursue based on what happened with Malik Jones.
Right.
So.
And they took some heat for that from the outlying towns for a while. But then as more incidents kind of happened, other towns, I think, probably realized, oh, yeah, all right.
This is something that maybe we should take heed of.
Right.
You know.
So what I'm saying is maybe in the outlier towns, is this used as a model of, hey, folks, this is what we should not be doing. We should be, taking extra caution to make sure things like this don't happen again, because that was deep.
Yeah.
You covered a lot of that more than I did.
Yeah, I did.
That was deep.
And when the attorney's report came out for the city of New Haven, it was heartbreaking in a way because, and you and I used to have debates about this, but it was heartbreaking in the respect that this kid didn't have a chance. He may have backed himself into a corner, but he didn't have a chance. Right. He didn't have a chance to get out the car. Right. In him backing the car up, it was a decision, and it was a decision that was made that possibly cost him his life, and it did. It affected everybody. Mm-hmm. I think it was interesting to me when I covered the march from East Haven to New Haven, that there were, because for a lot of media outlets and a lot of people, it was a race issue. Right. And it still is, but I'm looking at it, what I'm getting ready to say is from the standpoint of nobody had thought about police brutality affecting people who weren't of color. Right. And there were people who walked into the parade and said, I was affected. I was affected by East Haven police. East Haven police did something to me. Right. And they weren't people of color. Right. And so it was something that was, and dare I say it like this, but I won't say ahead of its time, but I definitely will say it was one of the first group of shootings that was recognized as an issue in the United States. Yeah. Because you have to remember, cop shootings weren't common when Malik Jones was killed. Right. And so it started to pick up steam around the country. He wasn't the first, but he was amongst the group in the early 1990s that this started to happen.
And it was the drama, too, that was swirling around the whole incident. Yep. You would think that policing would be there'd be regional goals, regional protocols around cities versus the suburbs. Very different in the suburbs.
Right. Well, the other thing is, too, when you start to talk regional, and we know how that went. Right. Regional county schools. And, we know how that went. Right. So, I mean, in the South, they do have a lot of county laws. We don't have that in Connecticut, and I'm not so sure why. We've always had the debate that by doing things in a county system, it may cost you less money. Right. But it always seems that the smaller towns always feel like they're going to not get their fair share. Right. They always complain about not getting their fair share now, and it's 169 towns and municipalities.
Right. Especially in education funding and stuff. But maybe in public safety, police and fire. They should start in this 21st century
to look at that.
Let's do it in a county way where like the protocols are the same. I mean, it was East Haven with the Malik Jones. It was East Haven and New Haven. It very well could have been Milford or Bethany or Wallingford.
Right.
It just happened to be East Haven, which doesn't have the best
reputation.
I mean, we're not talking out of school here.
Right.
You know, we can quantify that if we had to.
Yes.
Best reputation, but it could be Bethany.
Yeah.
So that would be interesting to see if the lawmakers up in the Public Safety Committee would ever think of, or one of the lawmakers put through a bill for some sort of regional protocols.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I think we here in Connecticut like to think of ourselves as progressive. Right. And we like to think of ourselves as problem solvers, right?
Correct.
So would it be different or unusual if there were regional protocols put in place?
I think it would help. I think it would help. You know, we have the case of Malik Jones and then the case earlier this year in Lower Hamden, in was it New Hallville and Hamden situation. Yeah. I mean, you know,
Highville, because right. You know, when I moved to Hamden in 1970, that section of town was known as Highville. Now it's known as Southern Hamden, which I find very interesting.
Right.
I mean,
so where does Southern Hamden begin? At the Parkway, at Putnam Avenue, at the Burger King, at Arch Street. Okay,
right.
You know.
Exactly. So, you know, that's a whole different story.
But those are the things that rattle our brains.
Our brains,
still.
Yeah.
Still. I mean, just because, you know, you're doing your show once a week and I did my show for almost 20 years.
Yeah.
And the last year and a half, I've kind of been dabbling in it. I still, and you do too, still follow the news very intently in Greater New Haven.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that comes from our ELI days.
Oh, John, so many stories, so much history. All right, so your favorite subject, Tweed New Haven Airport.
Yes, I mean, I always remember the days. It was 1991, and you remember when we were at that big station, and we always had to, in sweeps month, February, May, and November, we'd all get assigned a story where we had to have a 5-part series.
Exactly.
Okay, so I do a 5-part series in May of 1991, looking back at the Tweed New Haven Airport crash that killed 28 people. In 1971.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was a 4th grader at Nathan Hale's school. I lived in the Cove up until I was 10 years old. And I will not mention the name of the person. The person's out of city government now, although he was in the HARP administration for a while. Blasting me on the very first day of the first installment of 5. Blasting me. Why would I ever think of doing a report like a 5-part series on that? Well, it got approved by the news director. I was the assistant news director. I had the facts. I balanced out the story. The story went 5 days, different aspects of Tweed. It also happened to mention the accident. It wasn't fully 5 days
about that.
The accident. Yeah. I mean, I had the accident firsthand. I know what it was like with the fire, hearing all these fire trucks and sirens for an hour heading down Townsend Avenue towards the shore. Then we're out on the playground at lunch, and it's one hearse after another heading that way. These are and they're not telling us anything at school.
Right.
Then finally it sifts itself out that there was a plane crash. And sure enough, I got on my bike when I got home from Nathan Hale, and I headed down there. Of course, there was police tape everywhere on Silver Sands Road. You couldn't get near it, but in the distance,
you could
still see the wreckage. You could see the smoke at 3:15 in the afternoon. A bunch of us as kids were there. You know, that's something you never forget.
Yeah.
But anyway, Tweed, you know, that accident was an unfortunate incident. It was foggy that morning. It was in June of 1971. So here it is in 1991. I picked this story out of the air to do during sweeps month. And, you know, I got my education on Tweed in terms of the actual physical plant.
Right.
Because we used to ride our bikes there and watch the Whisper Jets take off, the Eastern planes take off, while our plaster cracked in our houses and the glasses in the china cabinet cracked. You know, this is 68, 69, 70, 71.
So, extending the runway.
So now here we are. It's now 2019.
Right.
And let's face it, Tweed never goes away. It keeps coming up.
No.
It gets tamped down. It's been tamped down since 2009 when John DeStefano and Joe Maturo got the state agreement.
Yeah.
No further expansion. They had done an expansion. They took out a part of Dodge Avenue heading towards East Haven. They did some other things at the other end.
Mm-hmm.
And in 2009, I think I remember them actually like shaking hands. It was like North and South Korea over Tweed New Haven Airport. And it was, okay, people living around the airport on the East Haven and New Haven side. This is it. No more every couple of years the airport coming. We want an expansion. We need to.
Right.
We're losing services. Planes don't want to land here. We're done. So what happens is they find some way in the last couple of years to try to attempt to unravel it. So what happens is, we'll say, the mayor's office, the economic officials, and the regional economic development folks, and the regional business people. We won't only put it on the mayor's office.
No.
But, chipping away at it. And finally, this year, in recent times, in the last month or so, last couple of months, the New York Appeals Court rules that the 2009 state law is preempted by federal aviation law. So, yes, they can expand within their borders.
Within their borders.
Just within their borders.
But now, John, what does that mean?
All right, so in other words, they have like 5,600 feet of runway or wide spaces.
Right.
They want to move it to 7,200 feet. That's not really that much. But the point of the matter is the people around there are miffed because I don't have a horse in the game here. I mean, I've been out of there. I added it up today, 47 years. Okay, it's been 47 years. But I mean, I remember the old days. The people basically were told in 2009, enough. I mean, there was going to be no more expansion, and really going from 5,600 feet to 7,200 feet isn't really that much. Within their borders, they're not going to take any more land.
Right.
But they had this agreement. And this agreement is benched on a lot of things. Noise, and benched on water pollution of Morris Creek, which goes out to the Sound. And this is the bugaboo of the neighborhood. Okay?
Right.
But the bugaboo of City Hall and the outlying economic folks and business folks complain that, we need more flights. Instead of the daily flights to Philly and the weekly flights to Charlotte, we need to expand the service. We need to get more folks using the airports. The same old story that you and I as reporters back 25, 30 years ago heard. They would lose carriers, they would gain carriers. But in order to make the airport viable, they need this expansion within their borders, and I, qualify it by saying that. So you got the politics of it. When in this 2009 vote in the state Senate, Senator Harp at the time voted for it.
Mm-hmm.
Now she's out loud and proud saying, no, the airport needs to be expanded. She's now the mayor. She sees it from a mayoral point of view. She sees it from economic development, and she is now applauding it. She understands the concerns of the neighborhood, but, and there's always that but, that 2009 agreement was a huge deal. And I guess the questions we would ask as reporters is, when is it going to stop over there?
Well, here's the thing. I'm looking at this now, dated July 24th. Tweed lawyers to Tong, airport right to nix the runway deal. So what they're saying is that memorandum of understanding, let me see, Tong is saying...
Who's the state attorney general?
Yeah, this decision involves complex legal issues that will have important implications for both the city of New Haven and the state.
Will he appeal it?
We greatly appreciate the input of Senator Looney as we continue to carefully review the court decision to determine the best course of action.
So here's what you have. You have a Democratic, very powerful Democratic state senator,
and
Marty Looney,
yeah.
whose district is in the airport.
Right.
And a very powerful Republican senator, Len Fasano, whose district also abuts the airport.
Okay.
They're both in agreement that, hey, this isn't right. You've reneged on this agreement. Mm-hmm. So they're pushing Attorney General Tong to...
And this is according to the Register, New Haven Register.
To appeal. And he's already on the record as saying he's going to try, he's thinking about it, he's reviewing the documents, so he may do it. And this may be all null and void going further. However, there are other questions that we as reporters would be asking, like, what was the vision for the airport
in the first place?
Now, I've read a couple of books on the city. Doug Ray, who worked in the Daniels administration, he wrote a wonderful book. It took me all summer, many summers ago, to read it, called The City. It's about 1,000 pages long, and it's in microprint. And somewhere in that book, I believe, he talks about how all the neighborhoods evolved, especially in the early 20th century. And he talks about the East Shore, the annex, the East Shore, Morris Cove, as evolving, especially after Mayor Lee closed down Legion Avenue area under his urban deal.
Renewal.
A lot of those folks went to the Cove. They went to North Haven. They went to East Haven. They went to West Haven. They don't know where to go.
Yeah.
So from the 50s and 60s, there was heavy development there. But there was heavy development there from as early as the 20s when the airport was there. The house I lived in was 1900. It was one of the houses. There were maybe a dozen houses in the Cove, Deep Cove, that were farmhouses. There were pig farms.
Right.
There were vegetable farms.
Right.
In the book Cove Days, it talks a lot about the pig farms. I never realized that there were pig farms adjacent to the airport. And as I researched it, my house was one of the houses that was a farm.
Originally,
whether it was a pig farm or a fruit and vegetable farm.
Yeah.
There was farmland. And they filled it in between 1900 and the Depression years or World War II, the Cove, a lot of those houses. And then in the 50s and 60s, the people coming off Legion Avenue, that area, started filling in like the East Shore area, like off of Fort Hale Road, by Nathan Hale's school, those Townsend Terrace where Mayor DeLito lived. That area got filled in. So, here we are, 60, 70, 80, almost 100 years out. Was there ever a vision for the airport? And a lot of people saying there was a letter to the editor in the Register on Sunday, someone from the Cove saying, my house dates back to 1910, so the airport is 1920. So the people were saying, well, why do you live there if you know there was an airport?
Yeah.
Well, those houses were there.
That's always the argument. That's always the argument. Why would you move? Famously, we did the story over at Quinnipiac. People were ticked when Quinnipiac started buying up all this property and these houses for students to live in. And it's like, well, we know that you wanted to live out in Mount Carmel, but you also live a mile and a half from the college. And so you have to know that at some point they were going to build.
And they bought up whole streets.
Yes.
And built.
Yes.
A city on a hill. So that argument, the neighborhood is complaining about noise pollution, air pollution, water pollution.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And other people were saying, well, you knew you were living near an airport. I guess as a reporter, looking back at all the stories I covered on Tweed, especially in the 90s, late 80s and early 90s, when they were losing carriers, gaining carriers, wanting to expand.
Changing routes.
East Haven built 2 neighborhoods at the end of the South Runway in the 1990s. So where where was the planning and the vision?
Right.
If that was supposed to be a viable airport, the way the economic folks and the business folks talk about it, then where was the vision from the 40s on? Because
it sounds like, John, there wasn't one.
No,
and it
there
was
wasn't.
It's primarily because, okay, we got this airport. It's only going to go but so far.
Right.
You know, and it's been sort of the tradition of the different legislators to say, okay, neighborhood doesn't want it. Right. We're not going to do anything. But like you said, when we were covering these things, it was always an argument, first of all, as to who the airport belonged to. Correct. Did it belong to New Haven?
Right.
Did it belong to East Haven?
Because it's on both properties.
Right. That was number one. Then the second thing was, okay, so now that we have it, are we going to expand it? Because the business community is saying we need this airport to grow.
And they did. They did expand it. However, it's not expanded enough.
And so the third thing would be, even though it was agreed to that there would be no more expansion, there was never a cap on where houses could be built.
Housing development.
There was never a cap on housing development.
Forget New Haven. On the East Haven side, at the south end, they put 2 whole neighborhoods in the 1990s that are right at the south end of the takeoff. So even on the East Haven side, you can't just blame New Haven.
Right.
On the East Haven side, there's no planning. So let's play the what-if game. We go back to the 1940s and the 1950s, and we say, what would have really taken to make it truly a viable airport? Forget Philadelphia, forget Charlotte. Let's go to where they want to go now, Chicago, and other places.
Right.
What would it really have taken, and why was there apparently no plan?
Because I think, and this is just an assessment at looking at things over the years, and you'll agree with me or you'll correct me, because you've done the research. You've always done the research. But I think it was really, at that point, looking at it from a standpoint of having those who owned planes come in and out of New Haven.
Just the small ones.
Just the small.
A comfy kind of airport.
Right. You know, not necessarily anything to promote real flying and, schedules and, if your son goes to Yale and you own a plane, by golly, come and fly it to New Haven.
Exactly.
I think that's the thinking.
It was like the Hooterville Airport.
Right.
And then by the 60s and 70s, they did bring in the Eastern Jets. And then the Eastern Jets had to go.
Yep.
They were causing a lot of air pollution noise. I can remember we would have to hold our ears. We'd be playing outside. Those whisper jets were anything but whispering. Okay. And that's when they had larger planes coming in, and it didn't work. And here we are, what did I say? I moved out of there 47 years ago. I was 10 years old.
Right.
Here we are,
50
almost
plus years.
50 years later, and we're still picking at the bones to get this place viable. I think in one of the New Haven Independent stories I had read, they talk about enplanements, and I guess that means interactions, comings and goings, that they need, and I might be wrong, 200, ideally 200,000 a year, or let's see, here I have it written down, and this is a quote out of the Independent from an article back in the last year or so.
Okay.
They call them enplanements, so I guess takeoffs and landings.
Okay.
28 to 30,000 a year right now. To break even, they would need 200,000
people
enplanements.
A
year.
All
They
right.
have 28 to 30,000 now. They need 200,000 to make it truly a viable airport. And I don't know where they got that figure from, but if that's so, then even with this expansion, I really don't think they're ever going to be fully a viable airport that competes with Bradley in the New York City airports.
No. And I think the other thing is, you know, I don't know how much it could be like a Westchester airport. I don't know.
Or a Rhode Island airport. Right. I know I've taken off to go to Florida from a little Rhode Island airport.
But I've been to Providence's airport, and it's legitimate, you know, and I like it because it's cheap to park. It's like the best kept secret, right? Right. It's cheap to park. It takes you, what, an hour to get there? That's an hour less than New York City. It's a straight shot. You know, I'm not moving from the Bronx through Queens to get to the airport and dealing with that traffic.
There on time.
Right. Providence is a straight shot.
They need 3 more, according to the City Economic Development Director, the acting one, Michael Piscatelli, has been quoted as saying they need 3 more destinations to make it viable, to make it regionally viable. And one of them would be D.C., Chicago, and Atlanta. That's where they really want. And that's great. You could go to those cities from New Haven. That would really make Tweed worthwhile. But what is it really going to take to do that? And, you know, granted, the crashes of late have been these little turboprop planes. They haven't been big planes.
Yeah, and the one that we recently had with the father... Was it the father and son crashing into the house on the East Shore?
East Haven. It was on the East Haven, New Haven line.
Yeah.
Went straight down. You know. And there's been several others on the south takeoff that goes out into the marsh that they've been lift off and then dropped. They do flight testing, or what's the word I'm looking for? They do training.
Yeah.
It's a training airport.
Yeah.
We used to get our traffic reports. One of our, you know, we had a plane up in the air back 25 years ago, 30 years ago. There was a plane up in the air in the morning and at night, depending on weather conditions. And he would be in his he flew the plane. Dennis, he now works for Channel 4 in New York. He's driving a helicopter. But he drove the little turboprop plane and he would do the traffic reports for us. And that's what I think it was the intention.
I think that's what the intent was. I don't think it was. Yeah. And I think they thought it was always going to stay that way. I mean, listen, look at the Merritt Parkway. The Merritt Parkway was really created for just a nice Sunday drive.
Correct.
You know, coming down, you know, into Connecticut. Oh my goodness, look at the fall and the leaves changing.
There's an exit in Orange that's like a death trap. It's like it is just U-turns. If you're going 55 and you're getting off that exit, you're on 2 wheels. I mean, and you're right. It was a slow ride, Sunday ride. Look at the architecture, especially on the Merritt Parkway end, not the Wilbur Cross so much.
Right.
Look at the architecture, the wonderful, you know, cement architecture. Wasn't meant for the volume of traffic
that it holds on now. And,
it really
could
be a 3-lane highway, but it would take massive amounts of money.
Yeah.
And
it would take out, I think you'd have more of a problem if you had a 3rd lane.
Right.
Because of the wildlife.
The bridge restructurings.
Yep.
I don't think in our lifetime we'll see 3 lanes on the Merritt.
Not on the Merritt. And I always laugh because I always have this picture of these white males in their suspenders and crisp white shirts looking over the plan for the Merritt and saying, oh, this is going to drive traffic right into the suburbs.
In 1984, my first radio station, I worked for Frank D'Addario in Bridgeport. And he had all of his offices combined. So in one part of the office, there were pictures actually of that, where they're pouring concrete and they're looking at master plans and, you know, it was like 1938, 1940. And, you know, it was a huge thing back then.
But it's interesting to me from the standpoint of, I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, you know, we had the science film, you know, that you watched once or twice a week and they talked about the future.
Right.
And so I was like, okay, so if you cats were trying to predict the future, why didn't you think about population? And how stuff, you know, if you're projecting into the future. And I think that's the question I would have. And you do too. You've asked it in so many ways. But the question is, what about future use?
Right.
What about future populations? what will this mean for the city of New Haven? What does it mean for the residents who live around the airport? Are you going to buy them out? Are you going to be stuck with that little old lady syndrome, back in the day?
In the 90s and the 80s, buy some people out. And to make expand. That more recent expansion.
Was it with?
It
was with.
Well, right? Dodge Avenue. They restructured Dodge Avenue. They already took out some land. But, I mean, I would wonder, as a reporter, can anybody answer this? What would it take to make it a viable property? No deficit. Bring in the planes it needs to bring in. Truthfully. Truthfully. How many houses would it take on what ends? Either the north end by Nathan Hale or the south end at the water or, the east or west ends where the east end is East Haven. What would it take to make that truly an airport that could sustain itself? Because we're nickel and diming the footage here.
Yeah.
Okay? We're nickel and diming. We're holding off the neighborhood. What would it have taken, and to do it the right way, back 40, 50, more than that years ago, to stop the construction?
Yeah.
To even not build. If there was a vision, we wouldn't be talking here today about it.
Well, the other thing is, too, when you start to think in terms of vision, then it gets into this whole what is preventable type use. Like, can we prevent people from living over here? Can we prevent somebody from buying property?
It would be eminent domain.
Yeah.
I mean, they should have really thought about that in the 40s and 50s before the real boom came under Mayor Lee, when he forced all those folks out of the slums of Legion Avenue.
Right.
And, he had that vision, which obviously never came to fruition.
Right.
And has only really developed in the last 10 or 20 years along Route 34. That sat as a wasteland for decades.
Yeah, and even then, you still, from what I know, that high bit, that 34, that part of 34 was supposed to go straight through the swamp.
Right, up into the valley.
Yeah.
Beyond the Maltby Lakes and up into the valley. That would have been your way to get to Derby, Ansonia, and Shelton quicker. And that got halted.
Right, because of the wildlife.
Right.
And it always comes down to, there was a commercial a couple of years ago that said, oh, yay, we've shut down the plant because it was polluting water. Yay, now our water's going to be safer. But now we've got 3,500 people who are without jobs. And we have this toxic plant that we have to clean up the grounds. And, it's like all the things you didn't think about.
Right.
It was just being focused on that one thing instead of looking at it from various points of view. So, John, believe it or not, we've got 13 minutes.
Okay. How about I ask a question of you?
Okay.
You've been around New Haven enough. You've been in an educator family. You were raised in an educator family. I'm a teacher. I've dealt with Board of Educations, good and bad. Both of us as reporters have, from time to time, had to cover ongoing, protracted events with boards of education. What is the status of the New Haven Board of Education? What is, I'm like shaking my head saying, this is reminding me of
Does it remind you John Dow days?
Dr. Dow, yes. The end of the Dr. Dow regime.
Yeah. I think there's a void. And I don't know how they're going to gap it. Because you've got a lot of people leaving New Haven, a lot of seasoned folk.
So you're hemorrhaging jobs because people are leaving.
Teachers are being moved around. You've got a lot of dissatisfied parents. The community is rumbling about it. So it's going to take someone to come to this Board of Ed and say, stop it. Stop it. Stop it, Board of Ed.
New Haven is the only, if I've done my homework right, the only Board of Ed where a mayor sits on the Board of Ed. Mm-hmm. There are hybrid mixes of elected and appointed officials on other Board of Ed. Either they're all appointed or there's a hybrid mix. New Haven has a hybrid mix of appointed, I think. No, it's all appointed.
It's all appointed with the exception of 2.
Okay, and the mayor sits on the board. Now, that didn't start under Mayor Harp. That started under Mayor DeStefano.
Correct.
But I always ask myself, why should a mayor, having covered so many boards of education, New Haven and other places, and now as a teacher having to deal with the Board of Ed, why should a mayor sit on the Board of Education? Does anyone have an answer to that?
It's a good question. I don't know what the importance is.
Accountability, maybe?
I think it's accountability. I think that was DeStefano's cry. Really having a balance of power and making sure that things were done the way that he wanted them to get done.
Right. Under Superintendent Mayo.
Yeah.
Which they had a very good relationship.
They did have a good relationship.
Now, Dr.
And they worked
Dow,
together.
who you referred to, he did a lot of good things for New Haven. But he did
not have a good relationship with John DeStefano. They really battled it out.
Right.
And
Mayor Daniels. It was Mayor Daniels that he battled it out with.
Yeah, and wasn't it also DeStefano?
I'm not sure.
There was that quote. Because remember, his whole thing was the MER.
Yeah, that was with Mayor Daniels.
Yeah.
And a person by the name of Peter Halsey, who may still be in the school system. I don't know.
I don't know if he is or
that
not.
night was probably John Dow's Waterloo when he used profanity against Mayor Daniels, and we had a reporter on the scene, and we aired it.
We aired it.
But up until that point, I think John Dow was under Mayor DeLito. I think Mayor DeLito initially brought him in, if I'm not mistaken. And for a while, there was stuff he did.
Yeah.
His Waterloo was when Mayor Daniels came in, and things had to be tightened up.
Had to be tightened up.
And he had programs.
Yeah.
And he didn't handle it very well. I think maybe he was tired. And when he went out with a bang. And then it got quieter, mellower. I know New Haven, truly Reginald Mayo.
Yeah, and Dr. Mayo was about really getting the schools in shape. People barked about how much he spent on schools. And now they're saying, well, we didn't need all these schools in the first place. All this money was spent. All of this spending started under his administration. And I don't know about that.
He had his detractors, too. Remember, he was called an Uncle Tom.
Yep.
Which I didn't think that was fair.
Oh, it was not fair. It was not fair. And I think a lot of times in these kind of situations, people get personal. Right. We've seen it with this.
Mm-hmm.
Boise Kimber wrote something about Ed Joyner in the Register in the opinion piece. It's kind of personal.
Dr. Burks, from everything I've read, is no dummy. She's highly credentialed.
Yes.
So I have to guess it's either personality, politics, or both.
Well, John, too, it's hard to come into New Haven.
Yeah.
It's hard to come into this town and try to govern.
Right.
Try to do things, especially at that level.
Is she a 21st century Dr. Dow, is the question. She may not stay long enough for us to really make that assessment.
I think that's the issue. Whether, she stays long enough to,
Dr. Dow was used to getting his way.
Yeah, for us to see whether her initiatives will be carried through. I think that's the piece. Is she going to be here long enough for the initiatives to be seen through?
And who gets hurt in the end in all of this infighting are the kids.
Yeah, and I don't know if the parents make it any easier.
Right.
I'm not so sure if the Board of Ed meetings are the place to kind of air your grievances all the time. Because I wonder how much business gets taken care of.
So we can draw a parallel. The local folks who became superintendents were better superintendents for the parents and the kids. Tarazi and Mayo. Dow, heavy-handed, got his stuff through. Different time, though.
Yeah, different time.
And now Burks.
Yeah.
2 out-of-towners, Dow Burks.
Yeah.
Kind of same personalities, almost.
You think so?
Well, I don't see Burks getting her way.
Mm-hmm.
Dow kind of got his way in a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
That was the argument with Mayor Daniels.
Right.
When Mayor Daniels had to start cutting, Dow wasn't used to the word no.
No. Yeah, and he wasn't happy about it.
Right. He was there a long while before this argument even began, and he left town.
Yep.
But Burks has only been there, 18 months maybe?
Yeah.
A year and a half?
At best.
And they never really brought her in with open arms. She barely got in. So I don't know. Is it fair to pick on her? Is it her? Is it the parents? Is it the board?
I think that we're in a perfect storm right now. I think we're in a perfect storm. I think there's a lot of things that are happening. I think there's a lot of... It's exhausting.
It's a mess.
It's exhausting. You know?
I watch it with an educator's eye, and I shake my head and I go, this is not getting any better here.
Yeah, it's exhausting. And I'm sure it's exhausting for Dr. Burks and the parents and the board. You know, it's just... I like you said, I haven't seen anything like it since the John Dow days.
Yeah. He went out with a bang.
He did, but, you know, he
had a longer tenure.
Yeah. So we will see. We will see what happens.
Time will tell.
Time will tell, for sure. You know, God bless them all, because it's a tough road to hoe.
It's a hornet's nest.
Tough road to hoe right now. You know?
And happy birthday, by the way.
Thank you very much.
You don't look a day over 39, Michelle.
I don't know, John. Well, you knew me when I was pretty young.
If we go back 30 years.
We go back 30 years, right?
Yeah.
I was young. And my hair was this color and a lot bigger.
Yes,
You've got those pictures.
Yes, I do have some somewhere, yeah.
Yeah, somewhere. You have the pictures of me with big red hair.
Yeah.
So... yeah, and it was a lot of it. I used to wear it up, remember? Madonna. Madonna days when everybody was wearing their hair up and big and curly.
And my hair was recessing.
Well, you were doing the feather.
All in the back, yeah. I was playing with the back, but I had nothing up front. It was receding. It was receding like the tide.
Well... we can say this, you know, I think that our observations are one where we're coming from history and knowing, you know, sitting in those meetings all those hours, you know, doing the research, talking to different people, you know, so we are coming from
verifying, shaking your head like, did he or she just really say that?
So our perspective is a little different than most.
It makes New Haven a fun place to cover.
It is a fun place to cover. It's never a dull moment around here. That's for sure. That's for sure. John DeAndre, now a teacher of social studies in the Wallingford Public Schools, formerly assistant news director at WELI, news anchor regionally, as well as WQUN. He also did the show Reporter at Large,
which you started.
I did, huh?
You did.
And I learned a lot from him. He was my boss, an all-around good guy. And it's great to have you on.
Thank you, Michelle. And I'm glad to be here anytime you'd like to chat. New Haven never leaves us without anything to talk about.
I know, that's for sure. So we got next month.
You got it.
All right. And I thank you for listening to the show on 103.5 FM. Wait a minute. Let me do it before I go, Harry. You are listening to the show on WNHHLP 103.5 FM, broadcasting live from downtown New Haven. We are streaming live on TuneIn Radio and NewHavenIndependent.org. We're also streaming live video on Facebook Live. Just go to facebook.com/New Haven Independent, or just go to your Facebook page and look us up. And that's the show. Until next week, thank you for listening. Thank you, Harry, by the way. We done? Yay. You look good, John.
You do too, Michelle.
Thank you. I think I look tired. And when you know
got a full-time gig here, you know, you do this.
Oh, John.
Summer, it's hot. You got your squad.
I hate this fucking job so much.
You what?
The job I have.
Are we off?
Yeah, I got the mics turned down. I hate this fucking job so much.
I know, but just keep doing it. It's easier to get.